Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. The regular season is over. Plenty of drama for us to go through over this episode. As always, I'm joined by Scott and Joris. Scott and Joris, how are you guys doing this evening?
Hi guys, hello everybody, hope you're all well. First question this week I suppose is for you, Ben. How was Zurich and should everyone go to the FIFA Museum and Archive?
Yeah, no, I think it was great. I had a great time. Definitely check out the museum. It's a really interesting space, actually. And if you're like a little bit of a football nerd who loves kind of old bits of memorabilia, I'd highly recommend it. And the library as well. I think it's often overlooked. There weren't many people coming in, but definitely go check out the library. And if you are ever writing a book or anything like that, get in touch with them. They're really, really helpful. Mikhail at the library is a great guy, Freiburg fan, so we kind of bonded over supporting lower league teams punching above their weight. Although my teams are not punching above their weight, they're very much punching down. But no, definitely recommend checking that out. They've also got a bar, so if you're thirsty at the end, you can always go have a pint and watch some football. So, and Joris, how are you? We jumped straight to me.
I'm alright. Welcome to the big time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. We'll probably do things slightly different this week. Rather than run through all of the results, we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit, take games that had more importance than others in terms of the grand scheme of playoffs, relegation, try and kind of recreate that kind of final day that everyone loves where you're kind of bouncing around the grounds and all that sort of stuff. So we'll do our best. Unscripted, of course, we'll just free flow it. I guess the first kind of battle we'll go into, guys, is Club Brugge against Ghent, because obviously Erpen were kind of involved in this in the relegation side of things. So Ghent, obviously in the ascendancy here, kind of matched wins, so they knew that as long as they matched whatever Club Brugge did in their game, they would make the top four. For Club, just had to win your game and just kind of see what happens. And I think the only surprising thing at the Young Bridal this weekend was that it took them 23 minutes to take the lead. It was Mats Ritz from a free kick. Fantastic free kick. Great to see him back against the goals. As soon as that went in, the floodgates well and truly opened. Ferenc Ucla got the second, but all credit for me for this one has to go to Noah Lang. Cutting inside, he somehow plays this ball past like 3 or 4 defenders, but you have to see it to believe it. Like the angle he finds Ucla at, like you can see him on the TV, but you're like, I don't know how he saw him in that gap. Really good pass. Ucla just smashes it home 2-0. Hans van Aken then scores with his head 3-0. Noah Lang then gets his goal in the 42nd after Skov Olsen just ran round everyone. 4-0 at half time. So bear in mind, half time it's 4-0 to Club Brugge. Erpen have to kind of do better than Zulte Waregem at this point, or at least if Zulte Waregem lose, like they're in a good position, they'd be fine. But if Zulte Waregem win, they have to get a point or win. They're 4-0 down at halftime. This is a complete and utter just demolition job, and it's pretty embarrassing from an Erpen standpoint, I think, to kind of disintegrate in the way that they did. Didn't get better for them after half-time. 61 minutes, Matt Ritz, edge of the box again, makes it 5, I think, at that point. Ucla then gets his second in the 65th. He then gets his hat-trick in the 91st. 7-0 to Club Brugge in this one. Absolutely ridiculous stats when you look at it. 32 shots for them, 13 on target. Erpen didn't turn up. They were on their holidays despite actually having something to play for. So with Club Brugge winning, we travel quickly over to Ghent, who they just had to beat Oostend. Everyone's beating Oostend these days. Like, how hard can it be to beat bloody Oostend? For some reason, Ghent decided to make it the hardest job they could ever flip and do. They were woeful in the first half. They really didn't look up to the races. Probably kind of hung over from that 4-1 defeat that they had in the week to West Ham, which was a real shame to kind of end their European campaign like that. But you thought they've still got something to play for here. They should really get up for it. Oostend decided to actually defend, which, I don't know, this game, if I was watching it as an Oostend fan, it'd actually have pissed me off a lot more because I'd be like, where has this been all season? 0-0 at half-time. Obviously, Club over in Bruges are winning 4-0 at half-time. So for Ghent, it's just, you just need to get a goal. You just need to win. You don't need to worry that they're winning 5, 6, 7-0. You just have to win and you'll be fine. Disaster though, 52nd minute, no defending whatsoever from Ghent. Fraser Hornby gets the ball in the box. He makes no mistake in the 52nd minute. Oostend ahead. Ghent have everything to do. and they're still just it's a real struggle. It was like running through mud for them. It was really, really difficult to get anything going. They finally get the equaliser in the 77th minute through Hugo Kuipers. Very, very tight offside. Initially, I think, Joris, you said that looks offside. When I saw the replay, I thought that's got to be offside, but barest of margins, it wasn't. Again, you think, nah, okay, you've got your goal. Let's kick on now. Let's push on. They try to push on and they just get caught on the counter. Nick Betzner, 88th minute, he wins it for Ostend. So they go down, but they go down with the win. Club Brugge leapfrog Ghent into fourth place. And guys, I think I wrote an article about this, but I just felt like Ghent completely and utterly bottled this top four chase.
Yeah, they choked, didn't they, guys? Which was maybe not as surprising as it was to some people. They went into this game this was the end of a huge week for them. You know, they knew at the start of the week that they had this prize potentially of their first ever major European semi-final up for grabs. Didn't manage to make that. Arguably the bigger game was this one, obviously, with the playoff one spot up for grabs. Choked, didn't manage to do that. And I think Sven Coombs this week came out after the game and actually described the weekend's result and the whole week as the biggest disappointment of his career. I think he was obviously aware of how significant this week was and all of their objectives. None of them they managed to achieve. Massively disappointing for them. And of course, that puts them in a slightly vulnerable position now going into the summer. We'll need to see what happens there because there's all sorts of implications for their summer transfer activity and you know the impact it might have going into the early part of next season. This kind of bad week and just not good enough. I think they know that and they kind of acknowledge that. I thought, you know, Big Hein was a little bit evasive this week. In his post-match press conference where he was talking about how the Buffaloes had been victim to certain circumstances that other sides hadn't, which I thought was a bit of a smokescreen for just not addressing the fact that they just couldn't get the job done. And it just shows you how well a side can play as far as Ostend are concerned when the pressure's off. The pressure's off. They know the manager is almost certainly going to be leaving. That news is probably going to come kind of quite soon, I think. I would imagine Dominic Talhammer will be leaving. So, yeah, a kind of horrible collection of circumstances there. Club Brugge, on the other hand, went out and were extremely professional and actually did the one thing that they'd been threatening to do a little bit recently, particularly against Westerlo. Offensively very strong, creating lots of opportunities. This time they took almost every single one. No mercy at all. And Eupen, who went into this game knowing that they kind of needed to do something. Ben's right, it was kind of embarrassing from their perspective that it was an even worse capitulation than the week before against Zulte. Rather messy. And they've stayed in the Pro League pretty much by the skin of their teeth, and they have, along with a number of other sides, a huge summer ahead of them now.
Yeah, I'll also run through all of the teams here. I suppose I'll start off with where Scott left off at Eupen. I honestly do not know what ritual they must have done like 10 days ago or so. Like they stay in the league after the last 2 weeks, crucial weeks, having conceded 12 and scoring only 1. Yeah, it's great for them to stay in, but it's kind of a shameful or embarrassing way to stay in as well. But of course, they shouldn't mind about this. But now everything has passed. But yeah, very strange way to stay in the league. No real surprise that Ed Still and Eupen have parted ways yesterday as of recording. They have a horrible record in 2023. Much like Ostende, they got 2 wins in 2023. Ostende 3-0 against Club Brugge and 1-2 against Ghent. So you can really say they have been a major factor, or maybe they haven't been a factor in this race for the 4th spot. Well, they kept it neutral in that way. But yeah, surprisingly, they won. It was also, I believe, only their 2nd away win of the season. One of the worst away sides to do that then, and really well deserved even. That went well. I realize I'm doing it a bit weird, a bit of a mashup between the games here, but I'll go back, stay with this one now. Then for Gent, yeah. Again, I'm not sure whether I said it on record or was it in the group chat, but I guess anyway. Either way, I can say say I told you so. I do not, and I'm not the only one either. So I'm not that as much credit, but like just in a sense of like I did not understand why last week they held out to a draw for against Mechelen. That at that time was really still in struggling and adapting, and they had the chances. And yeah, you can never know. Of course, theoretically, if the results would have stayed the same, that might not have had a difference. But of course, they would not have to had to push for really winning this game in that sense. Then and yeah, that's the whole constellation of that game would have been different. Club Brugge, yeah, did their job. Definitely Ritz's first goals. I think Ben mentioned that as well. Yeah, Jutgla hat-trick. They also needed some more goals for sure. Saba getting his first assist as well. Saba being one of the few young youth players, the academy players that actually, turned up again in this game as well. The perfect chance to save this season for them as well. And here they are again in the playoffs, in the Champions playoffs. Still the only team that have made all of them. One of our listener questions that me already took to that was whether Rick de Mil should be staying on. Well, my answer to that would be, well, actually, this is the perfectly wrong timing to ask that, but let's wait and see what happens in the playoffs. This is so far the results have come more or less, but again, also in games where generally you would expect them to win, and now he really has a time to prove himself in the games, whatever, not really regarding watching the games, which end result it will give. Might not matter that much, but more like how they perform in these next 6 games.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be kind of the test case for him as to whether he stays on at all or not. I don't really know if I think what I think about him, if you know what I mean. Like I'm kind of like, he definitely deserves a chance during the playoffs, but I feel like they'll go down, if they go down that road again, you could just have the same result and you're 3 managers in again next season. But I think it kind of vindicates their decision to get rid of Parker as soon as they did, in the sense that would they have won 7-0 against Erpen under Parker? I mean, Erpen was obviously given up, like you said, Joris, like a couple of weeks ago after that 5-1 loss to Zolta. So, yeah, I think on that question, I'm kind of going to sit on the fence with you and just kind of wait and see how the playoffs go, see how he does against these other coaches in terms of like matching up and like his adjustments in game and stuff like that. Because, yeah, it's kind of, this is the worst time for them to even think about giving him the permanent job. They need to just wait until the end of the season. Like, don't get too excited after this 7-0 win, but don't get too deflated if they lose. Like, kind of look at the bigger picture, I guess. Let's kind of move on to a game that obviously was kind of linked to this one in the sense that with Erpen losing, I think, Scott, you've already played spoiler alert for everyone, but maybe they didn't quite hear what you said there about Erpen staying in the league. But yeah, obviously Erpen losing gave Zulte Waregem the chance that they really needed. And I think kind of looking from the outside anyway, Zulte Waregem were kind of, it was always likely that this was going to be the scenario where Erpen were going to lose and Zulte just had to win. But it started horrendously for them. 8 minutes in, they were 2-0 down. Hugo CK got the first in the 6th. Ayasi Ueda got the second in the 8th. Looked like he'd got a third when Cercle were given a penalty after a foul on Olivier de Man. Ueda stepped up, put it in, and then it's kind of materialized that he'd hit it twice, so the goal was ruled out, which I just felt like at the time that was kind of the turning point for Zulte Waregem to get a little bit of momentum going into half-time, which they then did. Coming out of that 59th minute, Lucas Willen makes it 2-1. And then 10 minutes later, Aliun and Dor with a really nice finish on the counter to make it 2-2. And literally like minutes after that, it looked like they completely turned it around when Federa put it in the back of the net, but he was ruled offside. And that just kind of felt like it sucked the life out of Zulte Waregem a little bit and woke Cercle Bruges up. They started to attack a little bit more, and eventually in the 83rd minute, Thibaut Sommers made it 3-2 to Cercle Bruges. This obviously meant that Zulte Waregem were down and will be going down. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but while we're on this game, I just want to kind of link it to a couple of others, because obviously Circle were playing for something themselves. We kind of spoke about it last week in the sense that they had a chance of getting into the top 8 or 8th place, basically. The team kind of above them in that position were Charleroi. They were hosting Genk, so they knew as well, kind of like what Ghent knew. They had it kind of in their own hands, just match what Cercle Bruges do and you'll be fine. But kind of like Zulte Waregem, they got off to the worst possible start. Mark McKenzie, of all people, making it 1-0 to Genk in the second minute. But then a minute later, Isaac and Benza equalised to make it 1-1. Buana Samata then scored a great header to make it 2-1 to Genk before Ken and Kuba in the second half made it 2-2. Charleroi could not find a winner, however, which meant that it was now between Cercle Bruges and Anderlecht. Anderlecht, again, knowing that they just kind of needed Cercle Bruges to lose to kind of go ahead of them. Unfortunately for Anderlecht, obviously Cercle Bruges won, but for Anderlecht, it just was even worse. On the game they had to win, they couldn't manage to do it. Like kind of everyone else, goals were flying in early in these games. Maurice Joykens gave them a 1-0 lead in the 6th minute. They dominated the game after that, but couldn't find the second goal. And then literally within the space of kind of, I think, 5 minutes before half-time, Rob Skuse scores a fantastic goal to make it 1-1. Skuse scores a header from a Herriman's cross to make it 2-1 to Mechelen. Islam Somali in the second half gets another goal to make it 2 apiece, but then David Bates is ridiculously unmarked in the 81st minute from a Rob Skuse cross to make it 3-2 to Mechelen. For some reason, Mechelen decided to win a game as well, so they're kind of unbeaten in 2 going into the cup final, which we'll speak a little bit about later. But that means Zulte Waregem down. Cercle Bruges are in playoff 2, their highest finish for over a decade as well. And I mean, that game, Scott, I know you watched that one closely. That game was absolutely ridiculous between them and Zulte Waregem. It's just a fantastic last day game.
Yeah, it was really good. It was top of my list to watch for the final round of games because of what was at stake. I knew both sides would be really going at one another, which they were. And in many ways, the narrative of this game kind of sums up Zulta's season. You know, lots of positives in it from their perspective, but also all of those long-standing issues that they've had for a number of seasons now coming back to haunt them. And in a way, it was very, very close for them. You know, the offside call on Federa was actually quite close. It was a lovely move. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it at first. I thought it was going to be given, and then they checked it, and actually, you know, they called it absolutely right. It was offside. And you know, when you need some luck, you know, it didn't come calling for them, and it's unfortunate from their perspective that on that last day when they had to win and hope that other things went elsewhere for them, that they were playing a side who in Cercle who've been as consistent and as impressive offensively throughout the season, because this was always going to be a team who were going to be able to exploit the kind of defensive frailties that the Zulte have had for a number of years and have never been addressed. Interestingly, getting into the game, Miran Muslic was talking about how kind of confident Cercle felt about their ability to exploit the kind of defensive structure that Zulte play, and he was proved right. You know, Cercle could have scored quite a few more than they actually did in this game as well. Such were the opportunities that they had, and in the end, this was a very good win for them and a massive reward for what has been a very good season for them. I was lucky enough to catch up with Carlos Savina, the technical director at Cercle, a couple of days ago, and Carlos was telling me that, you know, how happy everyone inside the club is, and what a big achievement this is for them, which it definitely is, and is a reward for all of the great work that we know has been going on there throughout the season. You know, that's what happens when you're able to maintain a level of consistency like that. But interestingly, he was telling me that they're really hungry for more. this isn't enough for them. They've achieved a major objective, but he said they're definitely going into the playoffs with the intention of winning them. And to be fair, there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't, because those two European playoffs look like they're anybody's at the moment. And after the season they've had, there's no reason why they shouldn't go into them thinking that they can win them either. Obviously, we'll talk in a little while about the implications for Zolta now, but yeah, a really exciting, really open game that until very late on was still up for grabs.
Yes, definitely. Close but no cigar for Zulte Waregem. I guess you said it all. Highlight that penalty again. It doesn't happen so often. I think it's not completely unique in my experience, but I don't see it that often that a player touches the ball twice and actually scores without while actually shuffling, falling down, and and then unluckily, I still haven't really seen it on the images, but okay, I guess the VAR in this occasion definitely has the benefit of the doubt, and we'll have a better image, a better view on this. That just ridiculous a bit, and that would have killed the game prematurely, of course, as well. Still, in the end, it didn't matter, except for Ueda potentially grabbing the top scorer title, of course, which is another thing that's still up for grabs, I guess. And indeed, these playoffs seem to be very much, really open. With the some teams that were on the upper half of that playoff, dropping some points as well. So everything really is getting really tight there and in every playoff, obviously. Yeah, well, to go to another game, it had been already scrolled over as well. Anderlecht in Mechelen. Yeah, indeed, Mechelen gathering some form somehow. Another away team that's among the worst away teams that have won, similar to Ostende. That's maybe there's some betterment to see there in regards to the cup final. I wouldn't put too much conclusions on this game. The one thing maybe, though, Verstraeten didn't play, like he can't play as well in the cup final, so maybe that was deliberate. I actually do not know if he was injury ridden as well, but that's that. For Anderlecht, of course, their worst result since 1937. So that's 85 years, 86 years even. So not many people will have actually lived through that and are still following the club, I guess. So probably the worst season for almost everyone alive. That was already, let's say, was already consciously following it as much, I guess, at least. And with an 11th finish, that is the worst possible result for them, of course. Stoichkes did get a goal against his favorite opponent. 3 of his 4 goals came against Mechelen. We just have to touch a bit more on them as well. Again, another team that has a horrible week, much like Ghent, maybe even worse than Ghent, although, well, maybe it's not really worth debating which one is worse. It's just in both cases, the worst nightmare results wise for both teams. Yeah, losing after getting a bonus initially as well in Anderlecht's case on penalties. Yeah, in Europe against Alkmaar, as at Alkmaar. And moreover, conceding 10 goals inside 1 week, then after these 6 clean sheets in a row. Which, of course, the 6 clean sheets is a bit of a rare thing. Conceding 10 goals also is, but the getting a 1 point out of their last 3 league games as well. So they really choked a bit at the moment where it mattered. Also, of course, the Verscharen injury it had already started that and might have been like the final nail in their coffin for this season, despite getting a few results still after that happened. But it was already less convincing in that time. Schoofs on the other hand and Mechelen getting 2 goals and an assist, which is a good sign for them. They'll definitely need a good Schoofs against Antwerp in the cup final this weekend. If they want to have some kind of chance, it's I would still say it's an outside chance, but it's a game of football, so everything is possible, like the cliche says. But yeah, what else? Yeah, and Bates, like Ben was already amazed that he was so free for that for his goal. Well, actually, difficult to say. I don't know if that was actually also not offside and if that was a close line. But either way, it's already special. Makes it more even more amazing since he scored where he probably should not have a goal that probably should not have been ruled out in that 5 minute spell as well. In before the halftime, where it could have been 1-3 already at that time, where he marginally fouled some players in the sight of the VAR at least, and before hitting the ball in as well. But yeah, it didn't matter. And anyway, this game did not matter that much for Mechelen, but good for them. I guess they got a confidence boost out of this anyway. And then the final one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but Charleroi Genk as well, that Ben took in the miss. Yeah, Charleroi miss out on the playoffs. Probably a game they could have won for sure, definitely. But in the end, it just did not happen. Yeah, there was a ball against the crossbar, but right before the 2-2, they had a few more chances as well. A few good saves from Van der Voort, who on the other hand wasn't looking too great on the 2 goals conceded, I fear, as well. But I guess that evened it out a bit. And McKenzie, of all people, like Ben said, scoring from the regular starting 11, so counting Cuesta instead of Sadiq. He is the last player to score this season as well, after El Canous also got off the mark last week already. This time it was the mark himself that got off it. Yeah, and yeah, for Genk going into the playoffs already. Okay, now I'm really jumping from places to places. That's the main thing will really for me still really is, and I've been hammering on this for a few times already. The defense. I've done a little bit of stats work on the scoring as well, and to be fair, of course, everything has dropped down a bit, but I was surprised actually to find out Samatta actually scored 5 goals and got an assist since Onuachu left, which seems to be the big issue, which is more than Janssen, who scored 2 in that time spell. He was injured, but I believe there's around the game difference in game time there only. Boniface scored 4 and got 3 assists, which is similar to Samatta. And Boniface actually hasn't scored in the league for more than 2 months as of today, again as well. So yeah, at least stats wise, that's not the difference. Definitely there is a huge difference in the involvement in the game, and you can't disregard. Yeah, I also looked up Onuachu statistics again. Like, yeah, they were just completely ridiculous still. Like, yeah, he's averaging he's still fifth in the top scorers the standings with a lot less minutes than anyone else in the neighborhood. So yeah, that's you can't take that away. Definitely it has to play a role, but they're just conceding way too many goals lately, and too easily as well. So my hope for the playoffs is that will change a bit, and I hope that Munoz and Cuesta will be back soon. For the first one, that looks to be fine. Cuesta remains a bit of a uncertainty for sure, but already to touch on that as well. Yeah, in Charleroi, they will be they didn't get this win that they needed, and they will feel quite hard about that, I guess. But yeah, much like Cercle Brugge, much like Zulte Waregem, close but no cigar for them.
Yeah, definitely close but no cigar for Charleroi, and an interesting summer, I guess, for them as well, in terms of some of those players that are leaving that have been on loan. That they'll have to replace. And I guess, yeah, with Genk, it's kind of like we always spoke about Rankin as not being the best in terms of defensive coaching, but so far this season it had been pretty decent. So maybe it's kind of a return to that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. Obviously, though, with Genk only drawing That gave Union a chance to match them at the top of the table. They travelled to Kortrijk, who are obviously safe, but yeah, we'll kind of talk a little bit about them. I think there's lots to talk about with Kortrijk because this was Bernstorck's last game in charge of them, which is, yeah, take it as you will. I think that's a terrible sign for them. Also, the last game for Christophe de Haan, the club captain. Didn't go off to the greatest of starts for them, though. Casper Terho is just kind of tearing it up out of nowhere. He gave Union the lead in the 16th minute, his second goal in 4 days after scoring in the Europa League. Unfortunately, that was in a 4-1 defeat to Bayer Leverkusen. So, yeah, they were out as well. Everyone's out, basically, at the moment. 1-0 to Union, that was. João Silva then equalised for Kortrijk from a Selemani free kick. Kortrijk then got a penalty, and obviously they had to give it to Christophe de Haan to take. He took it, he missed it, but then he scored on the rebound, and he had quite an emotional celebration off the back of it. Obviously, been there for quite a long time. Also, guys, I worked out that he was their joint top assist maker with 4, and he's been injured for a lot of this season, which kind of sums up their season in the sense of, yeah, they're losing basically with him leaving, and if Selemani leaves, that's goals and assists just completely wiped out. Union did come back, though. Watanabe was the unfortunate man to score an own goal in the 67th to make it 2-2. Terho then got his second in the 72nd minute. Nielsen just leaving the ball to him and him smashing it home. He looks really assured in front of goal. And then Kortrijk just threw it away, passed the ball straight to Simon Odinga to run round Vandenberg to make it 4-2 to Union. That means they went in on 75 points, level with Genk. So the championship round is going to start with those two sides level on 38 points apiece. The last team for the championship round, just to round up that section, obviously were Antwerp. They played a little bit earlier than these sides, than everyone else. Everyone else hit at the same time apart from them. They went to St. Truden for Bernd Hollerbach's last game, and fittingly it finished 1-0. Unfittingly for St. Truden, it finished 1-0 to Antwerp. Michel Ange Badakwissa with a lovely finish in the 48th minute to make it 1-0 to the Great Old. Last game for Bernd Hollerbach, and they finished it with no shots on target. So, yeah, that was quite wonderful. But that means that for the championship round, Antwerp won 36 points, so just 2 points behind these other sides. Club Brugge are on 30 points, so obviously not out of it, only 8 points behind the top sides, but in terms of wins, way behind. Goal difference as well compared to Genk's is quite far off as well. So they're probably going to be playing spoiler, but it's not impossible. But I guess, guys, just to kind of wrap up this one, we will mention the other game just briefly after we've talked about these ones. But championship round is looking really, really exciting. And I feel for you, Joris, because I feel it's going to be a very nervous couple of weeks.
Well, it always was going to be the playoffs. So, I remember telling you guys when I was not here. Of course, I edited the episode still, and I was listening to them as well. I believe in January or so, you're already almost proclaiming the title for Genk, and then a few weeks later, there's going to be a 2-horse race, and then Antwerp is there. Yeah, that's always going to be the case with playoffs. We'll always see with the playoffs. I told you guys as well. Until then, well, it matters, of course, a bit, but not that much. Well, it's lining up to be really exciting, and I'm actually excited about it. No matter the results. The like I said, the big time is here finally, and let's see how the dice roll. For Club Brugge, I'm also convinced that they won't be quite convinced. I shouldn't say that too loud, I guess, but that they won't be a real threat for the title, at least. I'm not. Well, they might play. They will definitely play their role, and they will. They have a chance to still move up on the table, but I doubt that it will be that they will catch 3 teams. Then they definitely need to almost win everything, I guess. And if they do that, they also completely deserve the title, in my view, as well, even if despite their season as well. Maybe last week I was a bit too early to call it as well as a disappointing season. All in all, it probably is, but they still have grabbed the last chance to really save that season and then, get something out of it. For Antwerp and Union, Well, actually, yes, there were some listener questions surrounding this topic as well, of course. So I'll also say my favorite, which is not Genk, which is not a surprise, I think, following all the results, but and following my focus on defense, and that's also why I do feel, whether I like it or not, like as a playing style, less I guess, but defenses do you win your championships in my view. So after the moment, it looks like Antwerp, despite having a little catch up to do, and of course, yeah, Union you can never write off. Genk will have to see how they react now, and yeah, like I said, Club Brugge, they might do really well, but I think they actually did. Yeah, they probably are a little bit out of sight anyway.
Yeah, it's looking like one of the most interesting championship rounds we've had in a long time actually, and it could very easily and likely go to the final game, much like it looks like it's going to do in the Challenger Pro League as well. Joris makes a really interesting point about. I mean, I think. It's too much for Club Brugge to go and win it. Of course, I do. I think they're too far off the pace. But, and this is important, but I think they will have a massive say in who do become champions. And this is where, their results become very, very important, actually. And looking at the way the fixtures for the championship playoffs have come out. They've come out in a very spicy way, I think. There's a very potentially massively exciting final round of fixtures as well. Go and check those schedules out because my eyes popped out of my head at a couple of occasions when I saw, the way that the fixtures fell. All looking very, very exciting, much like playoff 2 is. Usually we find with the playoffs that one is slightly more exciting than the other, but I think they're both going to be worth keeping a very, very close eye on this year. It was a lovely moment, actually, circling all the way back to Kortrijk just for a second. There was a lovely moment in relation to Christophe de Haan this weekend where pre-match the Kortrijk Ultras unveiled a rather nice tifo in tribute to him, and after the match Christophe was presented with a lovely framed copy of the artwork that was the basis for that tifo as well. Hopefully they didn't give Christophe the actual tifo, because I suspect even he doesn't have a wall enough at home big enough to put that up.
Yeah, it'd take a castle, wouldn't it?
Several castles.
yes. Well, who knows? Maybe there might be some space. Final remark already as well on the already having a preview at the playoffs. I actually enjoyed, even though enjoy is maybe not the right word in this case, but how this all panned out with all these games at the same time. With at some points there, Genk were virtually 5 points clear of everyone. In the end, Union is level with Genk. Since they turned the game around, of course. And indeed, then also, this is separate from that and again, but took more to that game, like Tero coming out of nowhere and starting to scoring goals in every competition he's featuring in. Let's see if he can be a defining factor for them. With Union, it's of course more, I didn't mention them that much in my stats roundup there as well. Of course, they are... the goals are coming from anywhere there. So if they can find more and more players that can pitch in, that it doesn't look good for anyone else either.
Yeah, no, I think you've kind of given who you think will win it there, Joris. So we've had two questions on that, so we may as well answer it now. One from Yolan and one from Dieter. Dieter also asked the Victor Mill one, but then he also asked who we think will win the playoffs. So we'll answer the championship one, then we'll go to the second playoffs as well. But Scott, I'll let you go because we kind of I gave my answer yesterday under the Kapal podcast on their cup final preview. So I'll obviously have to keep consistent. But you kind of sat on the fence, so I don't know if a 24 hours has given you the chance to think about who you think will win it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tremendously close. I've been thinking about this a little bit in relation to the listener question, and I think, all things considered, I think things are stacked quite heavily in Union's favour at the moment. I think they start as favourites. I think Antwerp have a very good chance, as I was saying on the Vierkent Pal last night when we recorded with the guys there, that I think Antwerp are in with a really good chance. As Joris was saying, they have all the ingredients, I think, to actually go very, very close. And have done very well, actually, against Genk and Union this season. And their natural game is quite well suited to playing these two sides. They're very good physically, Antwerp, and they're quite good at stifling teams who like to play, one-touch passing football. And they have the ability to bully other sides in a positive way. I mean that as a compliment. They're able to get in sides' faces and actually really wrestle the momentum away from sides kind of quite effectively. So I think, considering how consistent they've been for quite some time now, I think that they stand a very good chance of going very close. And like I say, I'd be very surprised if it didn't go to the final round of fixtures, so close as it is. But I think, if I had to pick one at the moment, I think Union, have a slight edge.
Yeah, it's funny, is it? Because I think it's going to be Union as well. But funny that none of us have picked Genk. Of all the teams to not pick, we haven't picked Genk. We all kind of think, oh, it could be Antwerp, could be Union. What about Genk? So that's why I think it's going fantastic. I think it'll be Union just because we had this conversation yesterday about how their side's been together. I like their kind of the depth. Joris already mentioned they have goals coming from all over the place, and I just think they can plug gaps better than some of these other teams can if players go out. And like Terho coming through, that's just, he's another one that they can just kind of chuck out there. They're pretty stacked in terms of like those kind of winger areas, because you can have a Dingle, Lapusan, Newcoop, and Terho. Like you're pretty well covered in all these places, so it's going to be great. I think it's going to be really, really exciting. Let's quickly jump to the other one, the Europe playoffs. So I never know what to call this one. The second playoff two. Let's call it playoff two. The only game we haven't mentioned so far from the weekend was Solang against Westerlo. Finished 1-1. Marius Randamaji scored from the spot. Igor Vertekele scored for Vesta in the 35th. It chucked it down with rain. It finished 1-1. There you go. That's that game done and dusted. So the Europa won. Ghent obviously atop with 28 points, level with Standard, who are 28 points, who actually, before anyone points out, we also forgot their game. They played Leuven. Leuven won. And Joris, you kind of mentioned actually a second ago how it was kind of nice about how everyone around, like, because every game was played at the same time, like there's all these weird kind of moments that were happening. And at one point, Leuven were like odds on, but almost kind of getting into the playoffs. Out of nowhere, they were suddenly in the playoffs. Opoku gave them the lead after Bacardi messed up, but it's a really good finish from Opoku. And he and kind of like Terho, just come out of nowhere and start to score some goals for them. Bacardi makes up for it by scoring on the right end to make it 1-1. Torsteinsson, who else, from the spot in the 63rd. Torsteinsson again, who else in the 62nd, makes it 3-1 to Leuven. Meligoni scores in the 91st to bring one back for Standard, but that one finishes 3-2. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things for Leuven because they don't make it anywhere. But for Standard, it could have made a little bit of a difference. But they are now level with Ghent on 28 points in this one. Westerlo then on 26 points. Cercle Bruges on 25 points. This one's literally separated by 3 points. And yeah, we've got a question as to who do we think is going to win this one. And I don't want to go first. So whichever one of you actually has an answer for this, feel free to jump in, because I think this one's really difficult to call.
Yeah, I think much like playoff one, this one is definitely going to go to the wire. I don't see anyone running away with this one, to be honest. I have a feeling that it's going to be quite close between Standard and Cercle. I can't really make my mind up which two. I think Cercle's consistency places them very well to go into this and have high hopes for it, I think. Ronnie Dyla has I think learnt a lot probably from not doing so well against sides that Standard would be expected to have done well against, as we've talked about a few times this season.
Like losing against Leuven on the last game day. Learned a lot, yes.
I'm hopeful with something really at stake for them, that making the playoffs. It'll be obviously made very clear to them that there's a big prize for them, and this prize is a big part of their long term plan, securing European football. So I have a feeling they'll be taking this very very seriously. But for me, it's between Standard and Circle.
Here, I might go for the goals and Ghent, but and also, well, definitely not writing Westerlo off, and either of any of the other teams either. But if I need to pick one, I'll just say Ghent, with the caveat that, well, how will they overcome what they just did? Will they completely crumble, or will they find, the right ways to rebound? But I suppose in theory, the Ghent squad should be the favorite here as well. But yeah, always feels weird for me to say something very decisive about the Hint squads, as we've touched on so many times already as well. But since
That's the
it's just a
problem.
technical one, I'll still pick them.
Yeah, that's the problem I have with them. Is just that I don't trust them. But then last year they'd obviously won the cup already, and then they just blitzed playoff two. That was the most like pointless playoff two ever, and they just blitzed through it. But no, I feel like there's pressure on Ghent, obviously, and it's how well do they deal with that pressure? Like they have to finish top of this. Like there's no real debate. They have to win this one. For Standard, obviously, there's not as much pressure. And then for Vessler and Circle Bruges, it's literally just a free hit. Like I know, like obviously, as you said, Scott, like Carlos, obviously they're ambitious, but they also can kind of come into this with like, well, our ambition was to make playoff two. We've made it here. Now let's go and enjoy it, and they can really enjoy it. And they've got the players that can cause some damage. Ghent should win it. Standard, you just know they'll beat Ghent and then lose to Vessel and Circle anyway. So that's just like how they're going to play. Like I just don't really trust Ghent or Standard. They should do it. So I'm kind of I just don't really know how to call it. I'm hesitant to back Circle all the way, as much as we enjoy them play and the way they're going to play, just because they're a young side, and maybe as the playoffs go on, if things start to look really good, maybe the pressure will start to actually come on them, and when they start to think they can do it, that's when it might unravel a bit. So I'm going to go with Standard. No idea why. I've just got a feeling maybe Ronnie Dyler is going to pull something out of the hat. And just kind of like you said, when they're up against it, maybe that'll bring the best out of them. But I think again, it's going to be a great kind of playoff, and it kind of all depends on the cup final as well in terms of results of that. In terms of this could be automatic qualification for Europe, which means even more for these teams. It'd be great to see any of the kind of, obviously we've had Ghent in Europe, and obviously nice to have them there again, but any of the other three back in Europe would be really cool. Vessel and Cercle Bruges obviously would be really, really exciting to see those sides just even get through into the qualification stage. Would be quite fun. Before we move on to the Challenger, we have a couple of questions on the relegated teams. And then we also have one on European football. So let's start with the relegated teams then. Kind of lump these two together. We have two questions from Ian Hemmons. We'll start with his first one. He says, can Oostende, Zulte or Solang bounce straight back? We can tie this into the Euro guys question, which is what's next for Zulte Waregem. I think we can... I don't know if you guys may think differently now, but I think we can kind of discard Solang from bouncing straight back. Like I think we're probably all of the opinion it just doesn't look likely. I just don't think they have the resources to be doing it. Something dramatic would have to happen in the summer. Oostende or Zulte Waregem, like, can you see those sides bouncing back, or do you think because either way, one of Molenbeek and Beveren's going to still be there, Beerschot are going to still be there, Lommel, you never really kind of know what you're going to get out of them. They'll be there. Like also Deinze, they were kind of having a little bit of a resurgence. So it's not going to be that easy, is it?
No, I think nothing's guaranteed. I think it's important to kind of highlight that. I think some people have made an assumption that, providing they hold on to certain players, then some of them are well placed to come straight back. I would not go down that road of thinking at all. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the summer. I mean, obviously there are big question marks at Zalta. Can they hold on to Jelle Vossen? Can they hold on to Zino Gano? Because there will be clubs extremely interested in both of these two. Vossen's a particularly interesting one insofar as his contract expires this summer. Gano still has, I think, another year with a possible extension option, but that doesn't mean people won't still come calling. And does he want to play at that level? That's another question, obviously. I think Zalta should hold on, and this is just my own view, I think Zalta should hold on to Frederick Dollander. I think he has had a reasonably positive impact since he's become T1. I think they should stick with him. He's impressed me in the short time he's had there. He just hasn't had enough time, obviously, to turn it around in the way that he would like. But there's going to be changes there, and there has to be. And sometimes it's a positive thing for a club to be relegated in the sense that they need that culture shock in order to restructure and make the changes that probably they should have made before. And Zalta are a club in that position. So although it's never a nice position to be in, and it's very painful for fans in particular, understandably, I think this is the sort of culture change that is going to force the club to make the changes that it should have made earlier. That's how I feel about it. They don't have a massive budget, Zalta. They never have, and obviously there's going to be less money to operate with in the Challenger Pro League. So huge summer ahead for them, but nothing can be taken for granted there as to their ability to come straight back, because that division in the Challenger Pro League next year is going to be, I feel, and I've been saying this for weeks now, I'll say it again, is going to be even more competitive, I think, because of some of the sides kind of dropping down. So I wouldn't be confident in thinking that any of those three are going to bounce straight back. I agree with Ben. I think Serang is highly unlikely they're going to be in a position to kind of bounce straight back.
Yeah, I'll go sit on the fence on both occasions here. I think with Zulte Waregem, well, they actually have quite a good budget. Otherwise, you can't get Vormer and Bruls in the winter, for example. I'm not sure if that's if it's correct to say they don't have a big budget. But the one thing that's for sure, it's going to be a huge overhaul in players. Vormer is not gonna doesn't want to play in the lower league. Vosse doesn't want to stay. Since it's in the lower league, there's some interest in some other players as well already. It's just going to be a completely new squad, and then that's on the Zulte Waregem point. So I just, it could go both ways if they do get some smart investments in, and maybe they will be able to bounce back straight away. Well, because of the format, it's really all a bit of uncharted territory, isn't it? So yeah, there will be two teams going up, potentially three teams going up. I won't be so bold to say that neither of these three teams can get there among these top two or top three spots. At least have a chance to promote if you're getting third. But on the other hand, yeah, it's really difficult to predict at this point in time. Yeah, like I said, sitting on the fence, a bit of uncharted territory, some boring answers, but too soon to tell, I guess. Maybe maybe if we have a preview episode again, by that time, maybe I might have made my mind up a bit about some of those teams.
Yeah, I think it really depends with East End on what happens in terms of the ownership of the club. If the right people come in and put the right things in place, then they probably could have what they need to go back up. But again, like with Zulte Waregem, they're going to need to gut that squad and kind of strip it back and start again in many a sense. And I think there's probably some players there that may be of interest, but there's also there's so many samey players, like we've spoken about so many times, that just kind of play the same position, but they're not kind of that much better or that much worse than each other. It's just a bit of just kind of not bland squad, but it's just, it doesn't really fit. So the whole squad needs kind of revamping into a particular mold. Yeah, I think there's no way Zulte Waregem should be able to keep hold of someone like a Zino Gano or an Ali Federa. I think Gano, some team in the Pro League should take him. I'm looking at you, Mechelen, Charleroi, like one of you lot who needs a striker to put some goals in. Erich Leuven as well, like someone that knows where the goal is. Like you should be going and getting someone like that, because he's going to be wanting the move and he's going to be available. Which kind of leads on to the second question from Matt Frater, who mentioned Federa, so we're not allowed to pick him. Which single player from each of the relegated sides has impressed you this season, and where do you see them landing next season, hypothetically, in the Pro League? He said, yeah, for me, Federa has been a standout performer. I think we probably all agree Federa, he's been pretty decent. Like, I think his numbers, like he didn't score or assist last season or something stupid. He's already got 7 and 7 or 7 and 6 or something like that. I'll take this one first, just because why not? Solang's quite a difficult one to kind of pick someone that stands out. I guess if you have to kind of throw your head back a little bit and look a little bit further backwards. But I'd probably go Antoine Bernier. I think he was kind of, before his injury, he was looking good. He was kind of their only real bright spark on the pitch. So Antoine Bernier, yeah, obviously going to Charleroi. So I don't really see where he's going to land. So Bernier from there going to Charleroi, I think. I don't know if that's really the right fit for him, but he's probably been the most impressive in terms of Solang. For me, what other teams? Ostend. Oh, that's a really tough one to pick a standout player from Ostend. I don't want to say Hornby because that's obviously another one. I guess Sakamoto. Like, he's probably the one player I'd look at from that squad and think that's someone I want to like have in my team. But again, I wouldn't see him anywhere above a mid-table side. The obvious answer for him is to go to someone like St. Truden and give them a little bit of excitement, but there's probably a cop-out just because of the links and all that. But I could see him going there. Like, there could be quite a fun purchase for them. So as again, can't say Federa. So I've in recent weeks, maybe not been massively stand-up, but in recent weeks, I have quite liked the look of Indore. I think he's started to get used to the league. He's made some impact in some big ways. So whether, again, like, he'd have to go into the kind of that lower middle table sort of sides to have an impact. Maybe someone like a Leuven, just a team that needs kind of some physical attacking players. Like Indore could probably be one. Like, in recent weeks, I've quite liked what I've seen from him. He's definitely come up to try and make some important plays from him at kind of important times. Well, you guys obviously pick the same ones as me if you want, but it's quite hard to think of kind of impressive players from relegated sides.
I think it is. You're right. It's a difficult one. I mean, just trying to whiz through this quickly from my perspective. I think from a Sarang point of view, I think Maris Muandamaji is a very interesting example of somebody who I think has the potential to play at a slightly higher level and has done very well considering the environment he's in and the circumstances that he's playing within there. I think there is potential there. That's the Sarang answer for me. The Zilta one might disappoint some because it's an obvious one, but a very important one, and somebody we've already mentioned in Vossen. I think Jelle Vossen, despite his age, still has a tremendous amount to offer. I think his work rate is fabulous, and his appetite and passion for the game, and to see him playing very well a lot of weeks in a side that for a long time now just have not been, have been, massively disappointing. I think he deserves to play in a side that don't necessarily disappoint him, and I don't think he will, as Joris was saying, want to play at the Challenger Pro League level. So I do think he'll leave, partly because his contract is ending anybody, but I think he will get quite a number of offers from Pro League sides and possibly elsewhere. So he has a lot to think about over the summer. A really good player, actually, I think, who has a really good attitude towards the game. And is a team player, so he will be highly sought after because of that approach. I think from an Ostend point of view, I would certainly, if I was another side, I would be considering Fraser Hornby. I've always been a fan of his, and they have looked a different side when he's played. Worth maybe a little mention for Brecht Capon as well. I think he's an underrated player, and somebody that the Ostend fans are extremely fond of, a bit of a big fan favourite at the Diaz Arena. So a little bit of a shout out for him for me.
But if I'm not mistaken, he has played his last game on Sunday as well.
He's good.
Yep.
Well, okay, I'll try to not pick the same ones as you guys, which is getting increasingly tough. But definitely your shouts are definitely I back them as well. But for Ostende, So, like I said, someone else outside of what has been mentioned is Nick Betzner, maybe. That I've not only because of his goal this weekend, but in general, he has pitched in. He's not consistent enough, but like I think he has the level at least to be in the pro league or another league, of course, but to a higher level than Challenger Pro League at the moment. For Serre, it's really difficult. I indeed wanted to mention Bernier as well, and since I also can't pick Marius now, I'm thinking about a third one, maybe Sambu at times, but like, well, not for a real top side, but yeah, maybe could be for a lower mid to lower table side. Could be a good pickup. And for Zoltwagen, well, it's not a very future proof one, but Vormer actually has impressed me to come to that level. He's, I don't know where he will end up next season to really be that influential after having not played for so long. Especially like his influence in the dressing room must have been massive as well. And then adding to his performances, which were still for for the level that Soltavarium needed, really were top notch. In general, and how much his injury hindered him as well, and that might have been the crucial fatal point for them. Maybe not a turning point because they were already on a bad track, but they were slightly climbing out of it, and they fell down of it for a little while after he came back, fell out as well. So Ruud Vormer maybe he deserves a shout as well, but where he will end up, maybe back in the Netherlands, maybe he will stay, maybe somewhere else. Maybe he'll get a money move. I actually have no idea. But again, I would say maybe mid to lower table.
Yeah, no, I think those are all good shouts. I'd also, Sambu, maybe someone like Morgan Poati as well, like kind of squad player. Could see him, like he can fill a gap and do that sort of stuff. But yeah, Salam was always going to be a tricky one to do. Scott, why don't you give us a quick roundup of the Challenger, and then we have got another question for Ian Hemmons, and then we'll get to Aidan Button's question that kind of will be a nice little wrap up for kind of the regular season and the European season. So over to you, Scott, for a bit of Challenger update.
Well, we've reached match day 8 now, which we've completed. Only two match days still to go. So in terms of score roundup, playoff 2, the relegation playoff, Dender and SL16 played out a 0-0 draw. Young Genk lost the Limburg derby 3-2 to Lommel, and Denza beat Virton 3-1, which leaves Virton on the edge of relegation still. And I think if SL16 can get a point in their next fixture, then that will confirm Virton's fate being sealed, and they will be consigned to the First National. In playoff 1, the championship playoff, Liège lost 3-0 at home to Molenbeek. Club Next and Anderlecht played out a 0-0 draw, and Beveren won convincingly in their promotion hunt against Beerschot 3-0, which leaves the bigger picture looking much like it has done for a while. It's very much between Molenbeek and Beveren with 2 games to go. Molenbeek still top with a point advantage. And Molenbeek really, from their perspective, just need to hold their nerve now and win their last 2 games. Their fans are very excited and very nervous at the moment, understandably. From a Beveren perspective, I think they still believe, and why not? It's at the stage now where one little slip is enough for the wheel to turn and for it all to change. But it looks, as we've been saying for ages, like it's going to the final day, and we'll be watching very, very closely. Maybe even the final kick at the final day.
Yeah, there's definitely so much potential for things to happen, and it's kind of, leads on really nicely to Ian's question, which is kind of looking into next season. But he says, who do you think would be best equipped to survive next year out of those two, out of Molenbeek and Beveren?
Well, I think both sides are probably have got a good case for arguing that they could both do rather well in the Pro League. They both have a lot of experience in their squad. Actually, they will need to add a little bit. I think on balance, Molenbeek are maybe slightly better placed. I think the core of that team at the moment is actually very strong, and if they can keep that together, should they be promoted, then there's no reason to suspect that they couldn't have the sort of season, for example, that Westerlo have had. We've seen sides, recent promoted sides, in Union and Westerlo doing very well when they've come back up. So there's every reason for both those sides to kind of be kind of quite optimistic. They've both been very, very strong and by far the best and most consistent sides in the Challenger Pro League for the whole season. I mean, Anderlecht had a period very early on, Anderlecht Futures, where they were looking very good, but it was just a good spell. Club Next have had a very, very good playoffs, but when it comes to over the course of the season, Molenbeek and Beveren have been by far for me the kind of top sides. Beerschot have been slightly off it, but both of those sides I think would go into the Pro League, whoever is promoted, feeling quietly confident that they're well placed to be kind of competitive in a way that they would want.
Yeah, I agree. I would even state like both of these sides at the moment already, and definitely if they can get some transfer injections over the summer, maybe already look better equipped than some of the teams that are currently still in the league, and or even ones that have not been relegated as well.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Urban. So I think that's kind of how I feel. Like obviously very, very early doors, but like looking ahead to next season, like the teams I have as favourites to go down doesn't include either of these two teams. Like there's teams in the league, in the Pro League right now, who are definitely in a worse position on and off the pitch. So I think either of these teams come up, they should be pretty decent. I think ironically, like, the Beveren we'll see coming up should be a lot better than the Beveren we saw going down. I think they have. It feels like they've kind of changed it up a bit and had that refresh that we're looking at these other sides to have. But they obviously don't want to spend too long down there, because the longer you stay down there, the more difficult it becomes. Let's kind of wrap this up with our final question. Obviously, we had the really disappointing results in the European game this last week. We were hoping to get everyone through. Everyone got out. Leverkusen obviously beat Union 4-1, which was such a real shame way to end their one. West Ham beat Ghent 4-1, which it just felt like Ghent really had to take advantage of that first leg. Biggest disappointment was obviously the Anderlecht one being 2-0 up, going away, throwing that away within 13 minutes and then losing on penalties. But kind of, I guess Aidan's question is quite nice, because it should kind of bring us all back to it. Be like, now you've had a chance to kind of catch your breath after the kind of craziness of yesterday. With the level of competitiveness, both at home and in Europe, how much of a success would you brand this season for Belgian football?
All in all, just a big success, I guess. Even though, well, it's difficult to judge at the moment. It's really difficult because the Conference League does skew a few things. But Club Brugge making a Champions League round as well, combined with the unexpected Union run that far into the Europa League as well. And then two teams still reaching the quarterfinals of the Conference League, even though they could have done better in the initial stages, in the group stages. But all in all, just a big success. And then let's hope this is not a one-off thing.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Joris. I think the larger context here is actually very important. Despite the massive disappointment of none of the Belgian sides making the semi-finals in Europe, which we all felt extremely positive about, particularly going into the second games. We felt like we're probably going to get at least one of the three sides through, and in the end, we had a terrible night of results, particularly for Anderlecht, who going into it were in the strongest position of them all. So that was hugely disappointing, but we know it's been the best ever season for the Belgian coefficient and has far exceeded everyone's expectations, and we shouldn't forget that, and the implications that has for the next few years for European football for Belgian sides. And of course the league remains extremely heavily scouted by all the right people, and there is, I think, more attention and more eyes on the Pro League than than ever before, and that's what we want. And that's off the back of not only, you know, a good season in Europe, but a very competitive domestic season. And I think there's lots of indicators, early indicators, that suggest next season is going to be just as competitive and exciting. And yeah, it feels like we're entering kind of quite a positive phase again.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we were in danger, weren't we, of becoming a second Bundesliga with a Club Brugge that's too dominant, but that just hasn't been the case. And then I think we've got a couple of people to give our hats to. Hats off to Karl Hoefkens for his performances with club in the Champions League. I think that shouldn't be forgotten what they did. That was really fun to watch them just kind of upset that competition a little bit. Obviously ended horrendously, but it was fun while it lasted. And then, yeah, I guess people slate it, but the Conference League's great. I love the Conference League. I think it's been such a welcome addition as a competition. It just gives, we see an Anderlecht against Alkmaar as an Alkmaar quarter-final, like one of those teams is getting to a semi-final of a European competition. That's great. Like, there's more football outside of these big leagues. There's teams that have such great supporters that we've seen. We've got to see it as well. Like, obviously we follow Belgium, but then we get to see them play against teams from Cyprus, teams from Estonia, Latvia. In the kind of qualification, you see them games against teams from Kosovo, Poland. Like, you get to see them play against all these different countries, Norway, Sweden, like all of these, and it's just great to kind of discover more football through the Conference League. And I think that's what's been so exciting. And the further they go, the better the reputation of the league gets. For us as well, it means we get kind of more people listening to our podcast, more people asking us questions, which is great because then we just get to talk about Belgian football even more. And yeah, we get to talk about Gift Orban a lot as well. Like, that was one of the things that happened this year, wasn't, like, Gift Orban scoring it. That Istanbul game, that's great. Like, that's one I'll probably always remember, was that ridiculous nature of that turnaround. So yeah, and I think definitely it's been great for us, and just fingers crossed this can be a consistent thing. And I think with the Conference League, we should have bigger expectations on these Belgian teams when they progress through that competition. They should be reaching knockout stages of the Conference League. Like, that should be kind of a minimum expectation these sides have, because they have the talent to do it, for sure. But I think that probably wraps it up for this episode. Obviously, the cup final is coming up this weekend. Scott and I have already done a preview. We just did it for a different podcast, for the Vakanta Pal. We've tweeted about it, so you can go check that out on YouTube as well. But Joris, you weren't there, so we kind of need to give you the chance to say what you think is going to happen in the cup final. So this is now your time to tell us who you think is going to win it. And you have to give a score prediction, because Scott and I have already done that as well.
Half of the league, well, everyone that's still active wants Antwerp to win, because it will move, make sure of some European tickets moving and some more certainty for some teams. The whole playoff one, for example, Champions playoffs would be certain of Europe. There won't be an extra game as well. And I do think they will do it as well. What to say? 2-1. I say now. Yeah, yes, 2-1. Antwerp doesn't score so much. It's already surprised that they concede even, maybe, but Mechelen seem to have found some goal scoring, so a goal can always go in. So 2-1 for Antwerp is my prediction.
That's exactly very similar to what we said. A goal can always go in for Mechelen off one of those random long-range strikes from any of those players. But I think we've all gone for Antwerp, which means Mechelen are going to win. So apologies to the Vakanta Pal and fans of the Great Old. We have brought the jinx to you. Guys, as always, it's been a pleasure. Regular season in the wrap. I'm sure we're both looking forward to the playoffs. But as always, thanks for joining me on this episode.
What an absolute delight, as always. And I'm now away to Zurich because somebody told me to go to the FIFA Museum and Archive.
Some good time off now, a little bit. I can relax a few days before it all. Well, I will be stress balled in the next so many weeks. Well, I will need one, a huge one.
I think Genk should send it all one out. All the teams in the playoffs should send a stress ball to every one of their fans just to get them through the next couple of weeks. We'll obviously be there throughout the playoffs to keep you updated with everything that's going on. So if you do have any questions, please do get in touch with us like everyone else has. It was great answering all of these. If you like what we do as well and you've enjoyed this podcast, please do leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. But once again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.